Hello and welcome to my kitchen. This Chav Gimel Tammuz is my father's yahrzeit. Avi Meiri, Reb Shneir Zalman, Ben Reb Yisrael Baruch. It's interesting, I speak a lot in many places. And one time I was in Borough Park, I think in Shalheves. And I said something, I don't remember what. I said my father, and a woman in the back said, Reb Zalman? I said, you knew my father? She says, no, I listen to your speeches. You mention him all the time. Of course I do, because he was my strength. My mother passed away. I was 16 years old, and he was left with my grandson is listening to me say this, so I don't want him to know, but Mendel Bubbe wasn't always so, holy, And he was left with a pretty mischievous teenager. He tried his best. This is what came out. He tried his best. Let me tell you about him. What was Reb Zalman Butman? What was he? Who was he? He was an Ehev Yisrael. That's who he was. He did Aiden Ateva, he did favors, he was an Ehev Yisrael, he loved people. He had an incredible sense of humor. Ta-da! I try. He was very, very, very friendly. He was very bright. He had a Weltanschauung that went this way. He was an incredibly good-hearted person. I want to tell you a few small things. Number one, there was a time that in the Ukraine there was a very big hunger and people ran to Moscow. My father lived in Moscow. He used to go to the train station with food because he knew Jews were coming in and they had no food. So he went to the train station to give out food to people that came in from the hunger in the Ukraine. My sister Leah told me that one time he went over to a Jew and he said to him, do you want to put on tefillin? Then he was doing Mitzrayim. So the Jew said to him, why don't you ask me first if I need food before you ask me if I have to put on tefillin? It's a good point. In 1947 in Lemberg in Lvov, someone came over to him and said, these are the papers that I have. The papers weren't papers. They were all false. These are the papers that I have. Should I go with them or not? My father helped Reb Leibel Mochkin with all of the bericha. And he looked at the papers and he said to him, Du weißt was? Ich wollte sie genutzt. If it was me, I would use those papers. And the man took his hand and he squeezed it and he said, Adank, because he knew that my father wouldn't give him an eitzah that chas v'sholom wouldn't be good. I want to tell you a small little story that I find. It was 1947, we were already in Paris. It was 1947, Erev Pesach, maybe a day before Pesach. And the Tata is walking down near the Pletzel. And he sees a Jew that looks like a Lubavitcher. You can tell us from far away. And he gave him Shalom Aleichem, because he gave everybody Shalom. And he says to him, you look very upset. You look bossies. Wie ruft man dir? He said, Meishaden Gaisinski. He says, you look very upset. He said, I am, mir ist schwer. It's hard for me. We just came. We have a baby, a year and a half old. And my wife is in Mirz Hashem any minute, and we have nowhere to go. And it's Erev Pesach. My father looked at him and said, Komm zu mir. Come to me. And he said, what do you mean, come to you? Du darfst doch fragen deine. You have to ask yours. Yours, deine means your wife, yeah? And my father said with pride, meine darf man nicht fragen. My wife, I don't have to ask. You could come. And they did. And the first night Pesach, a little baby girl was born, Rachel Gaisinski, who 18 years later married my brother, Shmuel. So whatever you do, any good thing you do, you really do for yourself. Tate, you taught us something. You taught us to look at a Jew with good. You taught us to do a favor no matter what. You taught us to be breit and to give and to do everything with simcha. My father walked on canes, but you never knew. Because he did everything he had to. There was never an excuse. Thank you for listening. I want to see him soon. Mashiach is coming. Seid alle gesund. Bewirchas Mashiach now. Thank you.